Hello and welcome to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show on Vital MX. The beginning of the end has passed. Loket, the Grand Prix of Czechia, as it is now known in sporting context, has been and gone. And as I've said time and time again, that marks the race towards the final checkered flag. And it really does this time around, because Loket was a poignant point in both title fights, actually, if you look at it objectively. We will get into all of that and more on this episode of the podcast. Thank you to Polasport, EVS Sports and All Balls Racing for all of their support all season long. We look forward to doing more with those guys in the not too distant future. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips. As per, I have a chair this week, which means everyone who was arguing about my mic stand doesn't need to worry, because I have the mic stand now has a place to sit. So please shed any concern. And I am joined by Paddock Pass podcast man, Adam Wheeler. How's it going?
Good, Lewis. The fact that you have a chair, does that mean you have also furniture in your new apartment?
I have two bits of furniture.
Which there is this big shop called IKEA, right? Which is kind of, useful and also not too harsh on the wallet.
Well, this may shock you, Adam, but I'm not the most technically gifted at assembling flat pack furniture. So it scares me, this place called IKEA. It almost strikes fear into my heart.
But they have a set of instructions, and it's even illustrated by this very strange blob man, as if to say any old blob can put this together.
Well, not to now gloat after my recent, putting down of myself. But last night I did in fact assemble the chair that I'm sat on from IKEA. It was a test run, if you will. If that went bad, then I knew to stay away. I did it. The instructions were terrible. As you said, it was a blob man with no words. So it was essentially a game of Pictionary, which I also struggle at Pictionary, much more of a word man. Would have been useful if there was no diagram, strictly words. It would have been better to go the other way, but nonetheless...
But that's not very international, though. That's the problem, isn't it? And speaking of international things, how many hours did it take you to get from one AMA Pro National home?
34, and it is absolutely ridiculous. I think, if I remember right, the longest it ever took me to get to Indonesia was 42, and that was the longest trip.
42?
I believe so, but then that would have included stopping for a night in Jakarta, because
right,
all of checking into a Jakarta hotel. This was 34 hours of strictly airplane. So yeah.
Sounds way too much. I mean, getting towards the end of the outdoor season as well, you must have been chewing on something.
Oh, I may never fly again. Actually, I may, depending on how this goes, I may announce my retirement, because I am sick to the back teeth. And the people I encountered, the people I saw, I must have been surrounded by the most idiotic people in the world. Like the final flight that I actually got on, this woman with child, she tried to board with the special people, not literally, I mean special people as in the ones who, go first, which does actually in fact mean the special people, but I mean a more broader term. Anyway.
Would you like a spade to keep digging?
For unique, no, that's worse. Anyway, she tried to board with those people. They said, no, not you. And she just kicked off and was like, I always go first. And then she looked to me, because why me? And went, don't you think I should go first? And I went, no, not really. Let's just get on the flight when we can. Come on. And then she was angry at me.
Did she identify you as a fellow special person?
I think so. I think she went, where's my fellow? There he is. But yeah, luckily, I could stay in good spirits by reminiscing about a fantastic Grand Prix of Czechia, which actually, let me talk to you about that. I have officially translated all of my work to referring to the race as Czechia. Are you still a Czech Republic man?
Isn't it Czechia? Not Czechia.
What, Czechia? What did you say?
Just Czech Republic.
See, I I got heat for this when I first did it because I was a real forefront, I was leading the charge. And everyone told me I was dumb. But my understanding is, and this is my very basic understanding, the government hated the fact that their name was so long on their Olympic wear that in all sporting context, it is now the shorter Czechia, or whatever you just said. Czechia? What did you say?
Czechia. Well, maybe that's the Spanish version.
But isn't that what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Czechia.
No, Czechia. Well, I mean, we might have lost numerous listeners by now, but the point is that, Grand Prix of Czech Republic, round 12, and it's always part of that annual back-to-back, as we said on the last show with Lommel, wasn't it? Did you actually get time to watch it in your sort of saga at the airport?
Yeah, I actually dedicated a lot of time to this one, and thankfully so. To be honest, Indonesia, in hindsight now, Indonesia is a tougher watch than a European race. Loket kind of opened my eyes to that, and maybe it was because the racing was incredible. But just the optics of sitting down to watch Loket, it felt much more like, oh, this is exciting. Whereas, I guess, watching Indonesia on TV, obviously completely different in person, as you and I know only too well, it was almost like I had to be sold on it more. Like, okay, prove to me this is worth watching. Whereas Loket, I was in before the gate dropped.
While there is a kind of slight spectacular element to Loket and watching motocross and then those guys going at full pelt around it, and it kind of breathes motocross more, doesn't it, rather than compared to some sort of new build, although the amount of dust was pretty shocking, courtesy of the good weather in the Czech Republic. But wasn't there a part of you as well, Lewis, that almost wanted to watch the race through your fingers? I was slightly worried. It just looked like there were quite a few riders on the edge of disaster, not just for their style, but just because the track could really bite them at any time. I mean, it looked really rough. And that coupled with the speed and the way that the lines came together on some of the jumps, it was... and also sort of reading some of the quotes from riders afterwards in press releases and stuff, it was one of those Grand Prix where I think a few of them were like, thank God we got out of here without an injury.
Yeah, Loket has always been cruel. Ask Jeffrey Herlings about that. But was it worse this time? I feel like it was worse. Definitely more crashes in peculiar places that I feel like we haven't seen in the past. Like, okay, there have been riders who have crashed alongside pit lane, but that many? And where Adamo crashed for the first time, down the bottom? Like, I was like, I've never seen someone crash there, let alone hard enough to basically rule them out of the Grand Prix. So I don't know what made it worse, in a sense. Not worse, because that sounds too negative, but more difficult.
Well, even my 15-year-old son, who went to the Grand Prix last year, he saw where Jack Chambers had crashed at the start of the first MX2 moto, which of course brought the red flags out and needed a restart. And he said to me, how's it possible to crash there? And of course, I don't think we saw... Oh, props, by the way, to the TV production, because even though some people were a little bit miffed that we were focusing on Roman Febvre and MXGP as opposed to, say, Jeffrey Herlings chasing down Jorge Prado for the lead, I thought the use of the drones and the way that the way the visual side, how multifaceted it was pretty cool. You know, it added more dynamicism to, what can be a pretty sturdy watch after 4 hours of the same camera perspectives. It seemed a strange place for Jack to go down, and somebody must have maybe cut the line or come up the hill in a different way, got out of shape. But it was pretty worrying there, and it's I'm sure people who are interested in MXGP or want to know about Jack Chambers will know by now that he's luckily unharmed. It seemed perhaps he was on the ground due to a concussion, maybe he'd been knocked out, but there were no broken bones when he got taken to hospital. So, from what looked like pretty worrying scenes, it was actually not that bad.
Yeah, well, Maxime Grau in EMX 250 crashed in the exact same manner. So yeah, just like, again, Loket has a reputation for let's just get out of here healthy. That's certainly the consensus amongst riders. But I don't ever remember it being this brutal. Fortunately, actually, before we move on, has MXGP outgrown Loket, or are we fine with it?
That seems to be a bit of an annual discussion. I think we're fine with it. The thing is as well, it obviously highlights starts, but then, you look at the plight of someone like Jeffrey Herlings when he came back from almost last. I think there were only three people behind him when he crashed in the beginning of the first moto and the second corner. And we know Herlings is class and he's on a different level when he pulls the pin, but he was able to come back to fourth place. So you can obviously find places to overtake. And the rougher it gets, the more technical it is, the more sort of special it is. That tends to help. But usually at Loket, if you don't start top five, then you can kiss the podium goodbye because the lap times are just so similar. But there was something about the Grand Prix this year that was just a little bit more of a separator.
I guess if we are done with Loket, then we are also done with Majora and Tuchental. Yeah, if you're going to say that we have outgrown Loket, then get rid of 7 tracks that kind of follow a similar, are viewed in a similar vein. But onto the most exciting part of the weekend. But what was that? Was it Jeffrey Herlings? Or was it Tim Gajser winning in Loket for the first time? What is the banner item in reflection, Adam Wheeler?
I'm tempted to say Jeffrey, but the fact that this would typically be a Gajser track, and you always see so many sort of Slovenian fans, that, Loket compared with Arco de Trento just seems to be like a big sort of honeypot of passionate Slovenian fans coming to MXGP. I think it was an overdue. I'm not sure when Tim's it was his first win, wasn't it? I thought he won there in MX2, but obviously mistaken. I think Gajser takes it, Lewis, and this was a big win, and it was a necessary win, I think, because if I had to put money on it, I'd say that certainly Herlings and Prado also shade him for speed in the sand. So if he walks away from the Grand Prix of Belgium this coming weekend with a third place, he can feel pretty happy with that. So, to get a win and to, extend the points lead in the championship was pretty important this weekend. So what Herlings did was impressive, both in the first moto by sort of just shadowing Prado, who seemed to be very much in conservation mode. And then, of course, to come back to P4 to take third place and take his 8th podium on the trot, 9th for the season. I think it just shades it. What about you?
I think, and I'm trying to phrase this in the correct way to not insult anyone, I think that although it was pivotal for Gajser to win, and he did that, so massive box checked, I think that it wasn't a powerful enough win to really put his foot down in the manner that he would have hoped to at Loket. I think that although he can hang his hat on the fact that he won, Jeffrey has still, certainly in my eyes, sent notice that come Uddevalla, come Turkey, come whatever, Switzerland, come the rest of the hard-packed tracks this year, I'm going to be there. And that was kind of the question that I was waiting to see in Loket was, okay, we know Jeffrey's most likely going to win Lommel and Arnhem, but can he actually beat Gajser and Prado on hardpack? And that's a resounding yes in my eyes now, which also means that if I'm Tim, I'm like, okay, this really is, he's not going to go quietly. Which I do think that there's a world where, as I predicted, Tim goes 1-1 at Loket, Herlings goes 2-3, and then everyone at HRC can go, okay, we'll make the best out of Lommel, come Uddevalla the next round, we'll be fine, not much to worry about, we just need to keep at it. But that's not the dynamic, in my opinion, at least.
Yes.
That was a very rambly explanation, by the way.
No. I mean, I think there's a lot of validity in it. And also, what was it, 58 points, 55 points?
55.
So 55. So that's still, just under a full Grand Prix of points ahead of Herlings in the championship, isn't it? I kind of get the impression that Jeffrey's, just from listening to his words in the press conference, watching his demeanor on, TV interviews. Of course, that was also his 200th moto victory after the first race. That he's happy with the way he's riding, but then the championship is something that's still a little bit out of grasp because if you look at the results, certainly for the MXGP class now, there is very much the pecking order that's been established for 4 or 5 Grand Prix now. Have the top 3 rise into podium contention all the time. You have Calvin Verlandren sort of stuck in that 4th, 5th place, threatening the podium when he can, when one of the main guys makes a mistake. and then sort of Jeremy Sewer, Roman Febvre, who was a welcome addition back to the field. These guys sort of in the second tier, and then you have like the likes of sort of Glenn Coldenhalf then fill in sort of that third tier. I just find it hard to see how Gajser is really going to drop the ball. I mean, there's so many points left, isn't there? But if I am Jeffrey, I will be like looking at that 243 Honda every week, thinking, please spit it guts at one point, or break down or do something, because I need a haul. I need something back here.
Yeah, and it most likely will come down to Gajser having to make a mistake. We're at the point now where each event coming up will be crucial. For instance, Lommel. Herlings has to execute and go 1-1-1, but that isn't enough. Prado will most likely be on Herlings' level, so I enter Lommel with the expectation that Gajser will be locked out of the top two, which is great for Herlings and Prado. We'll get to that in a minute because that's a whole thing in itself. Most crucial, I do believe that Vlaanderen can beat Gajser this weekend. I truly believe that. Febvre could too if he had fitness, and I don't think that's there yet for Lommel, so I'm kind of striking him. So realistically, championship-wise, I think the best that Herlings can expect from this weekend is a 1-1-1, and the most that he can hope for out of Gajser is a 4-4-4, which would equal 14 points on Sunday and 4 on Saturday. So that would be an 18-point game, which would take 55 down to 37. Still sounds ridiculously high, but it would at least be a step in the right direction. If Herlings goes 1-1-1 this weekend, Gajser goes 2-2-2, I think we're pretty much like, okay, this isn't going to work. You get what I mean? The hopes are so fragile that they can be shattered at any moment.
I think I could see Herlings and Prado tripping themselves up a little bit in the sand. And of course, you only have to throw, like Jeremy Sewer, as we know, has had trouble maintaining his speed all the way through the races, but his starts haven't been too bad of late. All he needs to do is, get up front, slow things up, slow one person up in particular. It depends a little bit on the weather that we'll find in Belgium as well. If it's kind of rainy and makes the track deeper and rougher, then that could play into the hands of, say, Jeffrey. Rather than it being quite hard-based, which Lommel tends to do sometimes if it's been sunny and there's been a lack of sort of moisture in the air in Belgium. It's hard to say, Lewis. I mean, but the fact is that the same three guys have been haunting the podium for a long period of time now, apart from, like we've said, Calvin Vlaanderen popping up now and again to grab a trophy. So I think Herlings is maybe just being a little bit more cautious than his riding in terms of thinking about the championship.
It is weird. I feel like we've all fallen into a trap of talking about Gajser versus Herlings for the championship. Prado is still second, 36 points down. But for some reason, I feel like the common consensus is that it will be harder for him to make up 36 points than it will be for Herlings to make up 55. A, do you agree with that? And B, why is that?
Well, let's not forget that Prado still has the biggest number of Grand Prix wins. I mean, he's got more than double of anybody else.
And I think he will end the year with that as well. I really do.
You don't think he's going to win another GP?
No, I think he will end the season with the most Grand Prix wins.
Right. Okay. Yeah, well, he's on 7. Gajser's on 3. Herlings is on 2 for the year.
Essentially, yeah. That's not an outlandish claim by me. That is just the smart bet.
Yeah, Tim has to win another 4 Grand Prix from the 7 remaining just to tie Prado. So it's he's already got the numbers in the column. But I could really see just the way that Jeffrey's universe is at the moment, Prado sneaking a win at Lommel. And I think knowing Jorge, he'll claim it as a major scalp against 2 of his championship rivals that are fit, riding well, starting well. I mean, Gajser was also getting that Honda away from the gate. I'm really liking the way that this championship is shaping up, and that they've been very cagey in terms of picking little bits of points away from each other every weekend. And would Herlings have gone 1-1 in Loket if he hadn't have made that crash in the second corner? And then also he ran into the back of someone. I can't remember who it was. Was it Bonacorsi?
No. Yes. Oh, it was Bonacorsi turn 1. Or was he the later one?
Okay.
Bonacorsi was involved at some point. Yeah. I can't remember where.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have gone 1-1, then that probably, like we said in the show, prior to Loket would have been a pretty decent statement, wouldn't it? Heading into the sand then.
Yeah, and that's the weird part, because despite the fact he didn't go 1-1, Herlings certainly made that statement. He was the best rider. And also, sidebar, in Majora, when I said Herlings was the best rider and everyone laughed at me, I now actually want to circle back and double down on what I said, because the recent races have hinted that actually I saw what was coming before everyone else. So I do, in fact, stand by that. Although it wasn't the statement of a 1-1, he certainly did make a similar statement with his riding. And I said that going 2-3 would be a solid day, the best day, enough to keep his title hopes positive. But because he rode so well, our expectations were suddenly heightened, and then now we look at a 1-4 as a disappointment, I think. Whereas actually, in hindsight, entering the event, a 1-4 would have been a dream. Wow, Herlings is really going to do that at Loket? That'll be incredible. But yeah, the speed has kind of skewed our vision somewhat.
Also, I think the P4 hides the manner of his comeback, and it was just pure sort of Herlings pinning the throttle, finding places to pass, taking a few risks. It was a recovery mode. It was very much like a salvage operation. But then again, it indicated the strength of the top three runners in MXGP at the moment, that he was able to come back to that fourth position. And he almost had third as well, which should have been even more impressive. But Lewis, I mean, he's on form and he's hitting form at the right time. And I think, as we said again recently in a podcast, this could be an extremely well judged championship campaign by the Dutchman, because there was a point in the season where we're like, should we get a bit worried here? Is the old JH84 ever going to come back? And it seems he's on that route. But I think Gajser's all-round strength, and now, like I said, he's getting the Honda a little bit more effective away from the gate, means that he still holds the cards on this one. And he just has to come out from these sandy GPs, both in Belgium and Holland, on the podium, and he's going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I feel like more and more we are seeing sports psychologists enter the fray here. And if I was Gajser's mental coach, I would just be, and I don't know if he uses one, but I would just be hammering into him, you are the most consistent and you have the advantage. All you need to do is survive Lommel and Arnhem. Don't put too much pressure on it. You don't need to win or finish second. You're that much in control. Just don't blow it and overthink it, because that is the risk essentially. Gajser forgetting his situation, trying to force a result that ultimately isn't possible, then crashing, throwing away more points, and suddenly if Gajser wins a moto and if Herlings wins a moto and Gajser is 8th, that blows it all wide open. It's on a knife's edge. So that is the risk, and ultimately what Herlings will maybe hope for, I guess. And Prado too, again. Prado too. I don't know why there's this Herlings motivation and support with everyone, but I guess it is just recency bias, because ultimately Prado's last GP win, although he's been incredible, it was a while ago now.
Well, I mean, it was the first Indonesian race, and then of course he didn't make the podium in the second one, which I think diluted the effect a little bit, and then he got back on the box in Loket, where he took his first win with the Gas 2 years ago. So, I mean, Prado's the technique he has, the smooth riding, the sensitivity with the throttle is ideal for a place like Loket. And I think it was rougher. I'm not too sure whether to credit the track crew or to, again, like I say, I wanted to watch the race with my fingers at one point. So it was very difficult to judge. But then you see the crashes and you see some of the accidents, and you kind of want to say to people, you want to remind people the throttle works both ways, right? I mean, you can take as much risk as you want to take. I mean, we've seen some huge accidents there, Lewis. I mean, let's not mention 2007, but I mean, Paul Jonas as well on the step down, which has been sort of smoothed out, it seems, and made, a lot more softer or gentler. Let's not forget as well that sort of the last fatality we had in MXGP or at a Grand Prix came at this circuit. And, of course, the Chambers thing was a scary moment for everybody. And there were some crashes. And I think, I'm trying to remember which rider it was now. who said, we're just lucky to get away from here with the points that we do in the right shape. I mean, if you look at the likes of, say, Sasha Coenen, who again, showed good speed, electric riding, decent starts, but then, was also crashy. I don't know. Loket is one of those really unique circuits. And if you come away with a win and you ride exceptionally well, then there's not many riders who are on the same sort of operating plane as you. But when it comes to the championship, do you think this thing's going to go down to the last round? Do you think it's going to be that close all the way?
Maybe, as I said, Gajser is the most consistent and he has the advantage. So that's a dangerous combination, and if you were a betting man, you would put your money on that. Maybe I am romanticizing the situation somewhat, but I really am dreaming of and can see a world where this is a three-way fight at the final round, and Gajser, Prado, and Herlings are within 10 points. In reality, that's probably very unlikely, but I'm really, old romanticist, I'm really clinging to the fact that that's where we're going, and I kind of don't want you to tell me otherwise because I've really got my heart set on it.
I have another question for you then. Was it good to see Roman Febvre back and, his speed was what we expected, right? Or do you think it was more positive that just one gear that he rode, which really stood out and looked pretty good, I thought?
I didn't know you were just one man. Is it not?
Well, not really. I mean, I can't vouch for I've never sort of put on a set, or I've never really sort of had a chance to look one over. By all accounts, they're not the greatest threads, but these ones look good.
Well, you are just one man. You're not a just one man. But before we move on to Febvre, I just want to clarify a point that we've kind of made time and time again. Our discussion about Gajser, Herlings, and Prado ultimately was all hypothetical, because once again, the thrill of MXGP this year isn't so much in the action. It's more in the hypothetical of where this is going and how riders are going to respond, and that's the real excitement coming from this season. It's what's going to come next rather than what just happened, which is great for MXGP. I wish they would capitalize on it more. In fact, it's really sad that they're not doing more to build up this potential thriller. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Can you remember a time, I'm going to probably make myself look very silly by having a fading memory, but when the Premier Class, so MXGP and MX2 both had championship stories where you thought, okay, I'm rubbing my hands at this one. I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, of course, in MX2, we've had a couple of years where it went down to the last Grand Prix, but I don't remember that situation necessarily being reflected in the MXGP class.
Yeah, obviously, MX2 was very exciting in 2022. MXGP was incredibly boring.
In 2021, it was the other way around.
Yep. To be honest, besides 2022, I cannot recall a time where MX2 was a nail-biter. Down to the wire.
Well, in 2020 was pretty late as well, wasn't it? I mean, it went down to almost like a clash between Vial and Jago Goetz in Mantova. But
from my memory, I feel like although it was like possible, I seem to remember that Vial just kind of had it, Okay, not 2020. Vial was far gone by the end. I really remember that being closer. Vial was 80 points clear at the end.
Yeah, I can't remember if Goetz got hurt or not, but obviously it was the pandemic season as well, which made it extra weird when we're having triple headers at the same circuits. But it feels like a little bit of a stellar season where you have good dynamics and good narratives in both classes.
In reality, MX2 hasn't been exciting because Prado was dominant in his years, Jonas and Sewer was good, and then before that, it was the Herlings show, and before that, it was Roxon, who was fairly dominant, and then before that, it was Marvin, who was fairly dominant. MX2 always seems to have a cream that rises to the crop.
Maybe we're doing a disservice to Vial and Goetz, possibly even Renault, Goetz and Vial as well. But what about, say, Jeffrey versus Tommy Searle? I want to say 2012.
My dream, and I do think I could make this happen. It would just be difficult. My dream is to get them both on one couch and just do 2-hour podcast that's just like very unprofessional, or informal, to put it better. But it's just 2 hours of bullshitting of, no, you were a dick. No, you were a dick. I hated you. No, I hated you. You know, like, because that is kind of their relationship now. Like, they actually are, I feel like, good friends now. But still.
Well, some people say that, you know, motorsports, you need like these intense rivalries, this hatred, this, you know, kind of championship situation where the protagonists hate each other. And I always think it looks a bit lame, especially if it's manufactured and fake. And you kind of don't want to rely on that because it becomes all-encompassing, it becomes very cheesy, and it's the same narrative over and over. But, you know, the intensity of 20, 30, or 11 years ago now, in the MX2 class between two guys. I mean, Tommy was more mature. Jeffrey was obviously like a petulant teenager that he was. There was real sort of needle there, you know, up until the point where I can't remember which Grand Prix it was, but Tommy felt that he had to go up to Herlings in the gate and say, listen, let's just stop pissing around all this bullshit of like cutting across each other and, you know, the gamesmanship that was going on. And, you know, unfortunately for the Brit, I mean, maybe it also resonates a little bit more with us because of our nationality. But, you know, when it came to the end of the season and we got to those sandy tracks at Loket, at Lierop, then, you know, that was the championship, you know, edging towards the KTM man. But there is definitely something about a bit of ill feeling between Grand Prix winners that does, unfortunately, hike it upwards.
Yeah, I'd be curious, actually. If you aren't British or Dutch, let us know if you actually remember or care about 2012. Because I would, again, in my mind, 2021 will always hold the trophy, but there's a special place for 2012 and the gamesmanship that went on. I think it was Loket where Tommy took out Jeffrey, or Jeffrey crashed by himself. I think Tommy took him out, and then Jeffrey got up, ran him down, still beat Tommy, and I think Tommy said he cried afterwards. Like, what a series! What a year! Like, in fact, if you need a better example, I don't know what else to tell you.
But wasn't that the Grand Prix that he won? Wasn't that sort of the race where he took the overall and managed to swing the pendulum a little bit back in his direction?
Who, Jeffrey?
I'm gonna have to go. No, Tommy. I'm gonna go and look it up now.
I'm pretty sure Jeffrey won Loket. Because although we like to say, rightfully so, we like to say that Loket is horrific for Jeffrey, because it has been. When he stays healthy, he's actually typically almost unbeatable there. I don't have his record in front of me, but I would say that he's won the years where he's finished both motos. I would say that he's won there more, like all but 2 times, maybe.
Yeah, I just looked it up. He went 1-1 and Loket in 2012, and Tommy went 2-3. But the next round in Matterley Basin, you know, Sandwich Gate, you know, Tommy went 1-1, and that was kind of the last hoorah because the following round was Lierop in the sand. And while Herlings, of course, went 1-1 in his sleep, Tommy was 4-4, and that was the championship done.
Well, and before Loket was Russia, which was car crash gate. So,
absolutely.
String together those events. You've got car crash, championship contenders getting into it, taking each other out, Sandwich Gate, lapping the field gate in a 4-week span.
Yeah.
Story upon story upon story.
So Herlings. I mean, for people who don't know, in Russia, Jeffrey went 1-1, won the Grand Prix, and then was a passenger in a car heading back, 5 hours, I think it was. From that bizarre track to get to Moscow, had a bit of a head-on collision, and he's still got sort of the scar, you know, in his eyebrow to this day. If you see it in the photographs, he was, I think, medevaced away from the crash to a hospital. KTM, of course, deeply concerned at the time, but it turned out to be, you know, just mainly this cosmetic damage. And then he went to Loket, of course, and won.
If I remember the story correctly, Herlings said that he was sat in the back. And he was going to sit in the front seat. And then at the last minute, he said, or his friend said, oh, no, I want the front seat. And Herlings is adamant that if he had the front seat, he, would have been probably quite close to death, and certainly wouldn't have won the championship that year. Like, it sounds like he, although it was horrific, it sounds like he really dodged a bullet, or the bullet, if you'll pardon the pun, with that little exchange. Honestly, this is why I have a little special place for Herlings, because you could talk to him for 20 years. You wouldn't get every single story. There is just drama and story and layer after layer after layer. I'd imagine that if you go to Jeffrey today, when I'd imagine all he's done is gone to the practice track, and you say, oh, how's it gone? Have you had a normal day? There's probably stories of like, this guy did this, and then I was driving back and I saw this, and then I went to the supermarket and this, like, it's just fascinating, interesting guy. But finally...
And also, this was... Go on, sorry.
I feel like we need to draw more comparisons between Herlings 2012 and what Deegan is now. Very similar in their brass approach.
Yeah, potentially. I think Deegan may be a bit more gobby than Herlings. I mean, Herlings was, what, 17 in 2012? I need to look up his age. Yes. Maybe even younger than that. Yeah, he must have been 17. But, you know, that was his first championship as well. He was clearly the best. And also just extremely cocky. I mean, he was some sort of hard work for KTM. I think KTM were also leaning a little bit on Jeremy Van Horbik, like his teammate at the time, to be a little bit of a guiding or a calming influence. And the two sort of were inseparable at one point. But
really?
Yeah.
I never knew that they were intertwined in any way.
No, they were BFFs. I think just for one season.
Oh,
I think there was even butt patches. So yeah, strange time. But I mean, yeah, like you're completely right. He is a story generator, even for stuff that he said. Or I think it's also important to remember in the wider context that Herlings came into the light, or he started burning brightly around about sort of social media really kicking off when Facebook was really big and there was a lot of interaction going on. I can remember, I'm not sure if it was in 2012, perhaps it was, arriving to a hotel in Portugal, and he was there sitting in reception just scanning through his comments, and he was having trouble keeping up with everything, and he couldn't believe the vitriol that was like being sort of sent his way. I think he learned very, very early on just to try and ignore most of the things that were said online.
That's also what I like about Herlings, because he's similar to me in a way, or I'm similar to him, where like he reads everything. He's aware of everything, and he likes to like when you get him away, he likes to be like, yeah, this fucking guy said this, and what an idiot, and like he's not the guy that goes, oh no, I ignore that. I don't have the time for the social media. He'll straight up be like, yeah, look at this, what this random fat man from Latvia said. Like, you know, it's just
someone's telling him. Yeah,
but
someone's probably telling him.
Going back to 2012, quickly, I showed a rider this weekend in Washougal. There was no phone service, so I could only recall. And I was like, yeah, Herlings in Portugal 2012 said Mel Pocock needs to watch out, listen to this, and called him all sorts of like bleep, bleep, bleep. And they were like, no. And I was like, yeah, it was probably worse than I'm describing. Just no one else has that. Like,
I have a hazy memory now of the head of the CMS FIM, Wolfgang Serb, the late Wolfgang Serb, getting in his knickers in a twist about this, and he was actually sort of asking us, what is banter? What does banter mean? You know, because I think Tommy was passing some comments off as banter, and how, you know, this chatting that was going on online, both in the press and through social media, was really not that much at all. But then, you know, I think the powers that be in the sport were actually quite concerned it was all getting a bit out of hand at one point.
Honestly, if we could replicate or pick up that season with the personalities, because Tommy's dry sense of humor went against Herlings' really direct nature perfectly. If we could pick up that and put it in the present day with social media and TikTok and TV, that might be the break that motocross needs. That could be it. Like, we could probably present that to Netflix. Would be like, no, MXGP, we'll pay you to come. We're in.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think Herlings had his fingers burnt. Fingers burnt is probably the wrong kind of expression, but he found out the hard way that whatever you say can come back to haunt you. And of course, he doesn't really have sort of the xenophobia that sort of stinks out the Deegan camp with the comments and the gestures that he's making. But yeah, there is definitely that sort of youthful exuberance and a lack of awareness of general image and stuff like that. You know, it's not the playground, boys.
Fun. See, who cares about Loket 2024? That was I don't. Let's keep talking about this. Well, we spent a lot of time on that, and I hope you enjoyed it, because now we're going to kind of rush through the MXGP results quickly.
Are we not supported by Polosport?
Sure, why not? Yes, thank you to Polosport for their support of this podcast. And hey, Yamaha YZ125 or 250 riders, this one's for you. If you've been riding models from 2002 to 2021, listen up, because Polosport has something that's going to make your heart race. They are introducing the new restyling kit, a complete transformation for your Yamaha, giving your bike a 2024 look without any complicated modifications. The kit includes everything that you need: a new gas tank, a full race seat, an airbox, all designed to fit seamlessly. No fuss, no hassle, just a fresh design that breathes new life into your dirt bike. Your old YZ 2-stroke will look like it just rolled off the showroom floor. So, to all the YZ125 or 250 owners out there, it's time to transform your bike. Your Yamaha deserves it. Polosport has what you need. Thank you to Polosport, and we'll hear more from All Balls Racing and EVS Sports shortly. Let's just run through some general talking points from MXGP before we move on. I'm really confused, and this is really going to surprise you, but this is my lead off. I'm really confused that Fantic celebrated the moon landing. And I didn't know we're at that level of just celebrating stuff now. Were you even aware of this?
No.
Okay, so
I find it very bizarre.
Fantic had graphics and gear to celebrate the 50th. I can't even, it's just ridiculous. Fantic had graphics and gear to celebrate the 55th, which is not even not the 100th, not the 50th. Fantic had graphics and gear to celebrate the 55th anniversary of the moon landing. It's just ridiculous.
Are you sure that's not just some wind-up?
No.
And maybe it was some leftover plastics and they decided to dedicate it.
It was on MXGP. MXGP did a post about it, and I was just like, what? We're literally just celebrating anything at this point.
Oh, my life.
I didn't realise it tickled me so much, but apparently it did. Why? I'm trying to think of an equally ridiculous thing to celebrate, and my mind can't even come up with one. Because why?
Are they still going to be in MXGP next year?
Another...
It's a 2-year deal, right?
I believe so. I believe it may even be a 3-year deal. But Koldenhoff has a 2-year deal with Fantic, but actually I believe his contract is with Louis Vosters, not Fantic.
Yeah. So, they could be riding another brand for 2025.
Quick sidebar. We love those. You maybe know more about this, but Fantic's business model makes zero sense to me. I understand that they have a partnership with Yamaha. They're not allowed to be sold in North America. They kind of focus on Yamaha's 2-strokes or develop them. But I don't understand why there is a need for Fantic to spend all of this money to go racing, to promote their bikes, because ultimately their hands are tied and they can't operate like a normal manufacturer. So is it not just a waste of time and money?
No, it's just a promotional exercise. It's the same reason they have a Moto2 team in MotoGP. They're just promoting the Fantic brand. So you would
But what
assume,
is the Fantic
I don't
brand?
really know. Well, they're obviously fabricating their own brand of motorcycles, whether that is a Yamaha hybrid or they're cannibalizing some parts of the YZ to make their own models, which doesn't make too much sense financially. You can't imagine the markup is that great. But it's just one of those niche Italian brands that's investing in racing, which is never a bad thing if you're a race fan, to promote their brand. But I don't know what their business model is. I don't know if by 2030 they're going to have their own fleet of motorcycles that they're currently working on. It's hard to say. It's the same situation with Stark. They want to race, and they want to race against combustion bikes to show the power and the potency of their technology. And instead of going around bike dealerships and seeing them full of Starks, and Starks are flying out of the door. They're actually sort of going about the racing first, or trying to race, and then, you know, getting the promotion off that way. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange exercise in MXGP. And aside from obscure livery dedications, you know, if you don't quite have the results, I mean, they haven't been on the podium yet, have they? So, you know, what else do you do to try and stand out, to say, look, we're an independent brand, we're trying to make our own twist on this technology. Look at us, buy us.
We need to start getting riders back on this podcast. Let's get Coenen off next week, because I would be really interested to discuss his position in the sport at this point in his life, and then we can find out more about Fantic. So let's do Coenen off next week, yeah?
Okay, I'll ask him in Lommel. See if he'll come on the show.
We're buddies now, so I could text him.
Well, technically, you were supposed to deliver Jeffrey Herlings, and, you know, just, I mean, he did ignore both of our messages, but I mean, I've trumped up with Jorge Prado. So over to you, Lewis.
Well, to be fair, now Herlings is winning, I think he would do it.
That's a bit sad, though.
Well, no, he never said that. He never said that. Just I'm theorizing.
That's your opinion.
Yeah, like now it's going better. I think he'll be more open to, you know, being out there. Okay, two things. Speak to Coenen off this weekend. Also say to Jeffrey, come on, we don't want to talk about the racing. We will only talk about 2012.
Okay.
Because honestly, who cares? Like, he's going to tell us that he's happy to be back. It took a little while. Who cares? Who cares? We just want to talk about 2012.
This is a reason why you should have come to Lommel. I mean, I know you've just done like 360 hours to try and get back from Washougal, but if you come to Lommel, we could have gone there with our microphones and had this retrospective podcast.
Honestly.
So there you go.
You know how to push my buttons, because honestly, in that 2 seconds, I just thought to myself, I wonder if I could get a flight.
Don't do it. Go to IKEA.
Well, I was going to say you're going to Sweden, but I think I've already got a flight booked for that weekend. Okay. Also, I clarified, I rechecked social media because it dawned on me, if you'll pardon the pun, it dawned on me that perhaps I imagined the moon landing, but in fact I did not, and then I Googled it because I thought it would be hilarious if they got the date wrong, but it was in fact the 55th anniversary.
Well, there you go.
But for a brief period, I was very excited at the fact that it was probably like the 64th anniversary, and the anniversary was in April, and they got it right. They got it right.
We might have riders and team staff in spacesuits for the 60th.
But that's better than just like, hey, like unique livery. Like no one, like, were you there? Did Fantic build the rocket? No.
Maybe Fantic had some obscure microchip as part of the NASA technological map or something.
What are we going to celebrate next? Honestly, at this point, they've opened Pandora's box. It's all possible. There is no limit now.
It is indeed.
Yeah, hey, we're going to celebrate. I still can't come up with something equally outlandish.
Well, by all accounts, people interested in bizarre liveries for motorsports look at what's going to happen in MotoGP in 2 weeks at the British Grand Prix.
What theme is there? What are we celebrating?
Well, it's currently the 75th anniversary of that championship.
Oh, so that makes sense. The moon landing.
Yeah.
I'm going to tweet about this afterwards, because this, you know me, when something gets in, when I get what's a crow in my crow in my mouth?
I don't know, because you do that monkey, softly thing.
Slowly, catchy monkey is a British phrase.
It makes me cringe.
Slowly, catchy monkey. That's Fantic with the moon landing. All year, they were like, here we go. Slowly, we'll get there. It's coming. Just you wait, guys. Anyway, Feather was back.
Lewis, the Czech Grand Prix.
Yes.
Can I just also give props to Brent Van Doninck as well, who, finishing 8th, top 8 after sort of his injury problems. But didn't it look like he was riding a Suzuki? It was like a big yellow bike. It was very confusing.
Okay, multiple things on Van Doninck. I'll rattle through them and then you can reply to whatever you want. 1, incredible return to MXGP. Horrific injury at Argentina. Absolutely phenomenal return. I never would have expected him to reach that level this year, let alone in his first race. Brilliant. Van Doninck, since his year of being out of MXGP has actually proven himself to be really quite good. So much so that I wonder what it's going to take for him to challenge his own perception and rise above satellite level and become a secondary factory guy, because he really has been that good. I genuinely believe
the new
that.
Calvin Valendron.
Honestly, he's kind of following that path. I'm going to do this for next week. I'm actually going to run through his results from the last couple of years, and we'll see really if there's something there.
I think what you'll find is that Brent was like a very promising rider in MX2, but then first season, I think he was breaking through when he broke his knee. I think it's just been a catalogue of injury. And then, of course, you also get all the mental shit that comes with that, the dips, the insecurities, the doubts, everything else. And when it's just one after the other, it's just stopped him really getting any kind of consistent momentum for longer than a season or two. But he's always been a solid rider, I think. And that was like, like you say, a decent return to form. 8th overall is not to be sniffed at.
Yeah. And I say he's got to challenge his own perception or the perception of him, because I actually think he was on a factory Yamaha in MX2. And I honestly think he didn't deliver what he was meant to. I think expectations were quite high. He had the bike, he had the team. I think he may have only had one podium.
Yeah, but it was not factory Yamaha kind of touching Yamaha Moto S or Star or anything like that. It wasn't quite sort of the Gertz era of those bikes being phenomenal and challenging the KTM for starts. I mean, the Yamaha was still pretty unwieldy, and it was very much just sort of a YRD, Yamaha Moto Europe project then. So it's, I think there was less, at the time when he was riding MX2 on that bike, there was less cohesion with the other strands of Yamaha. And it was a good bike, but nothing like the Yamaha we've seen in recent years.
I just feel like there's so much history with Brent that for him to kind of be seen for what he is now is difficult, because everyone has a preconceived opinion. That's all. Finally, to your point, I love Polisport. Jackie Martins has a deal with a Churbis where they have these unique graphics gear every week. It's not great, ever. At no point have I looked up their bike and gone, that's it, that's good. I wonder if, as far as marketing goes, I mean, Polisport have nailed marketing. They're on this podcast. I wonder if what a Churbis is doing as marketing, maybe not the best move. Maybe they need to celebrate the moon landing. Maybe that would help, because it would certainly be better than, like, hey, we've got pink on our bike this week. Hey, it's black this week. Like, no, not for me. Have you got any comment on any of that, or you want to move on?
I'm happy to move on.
Okay. Would you like to discuss the moon landing?
No, the moon is all good.
Okay.
I had a full moon here actually in Spain yesterday. It looked very nice.
Well, Frantic will be celebrating that this weekend, Adam. Spoiler alert. I'm actually going to clip that part of the podcast and put it on Instagram, because I think we need to start. I think other media like Formula One would clip that funny part of like having a laugh about something in a sport, and it would do. I think we need to start doing that in motocross. I may end up getting banned from everywhere, but we'll see. Anyway,
whatever next.
Forato was back. Struggled. First race back in a while. That was naturally going to be difficult. I don't know what his contract situation is for next year. I would love to know, so I need to do some digging. I don't know if it was a 2-year deal. I've heard a lot of reports about whether he's the easiest to work with, so I wonder how that's going. He made a massive leap to essentially say to KTM, I'm out. I'm going my own way. So I'm interested to see if this gamble is in fact going to kind of go against him. Although, admittedly, the team he was meant to ride for in MXGP, Revo, ceased operations before the season even begun. And with the rumoured budget cuts, whether KTM would have a place for Forato remains to be seen. I think they would, because I've spoken to some people about the 2025 KTM situation, and they've said that if a rider, for instance, if Sewer had gone there this year on a 1-year deal, if he had performed, they would have re-signed him, is what the version of events I got. Like, it all depends on who's performing. Like, it's not a hard stance on, like, we're not re-signing people. It's kind of performance dependent. You can write your own path. But yeah, just interested to see where this goes for Forato.
Yeah, because also he only finished 4 positions behind Matteo Guadagnini. So you'd think the Italian is what he's riding at Factory Husqvarna this year. What happens to him? What's his fate? Because it has been a couple of years now where, okay, he's had injury problems, but there's been none of that initial promise that we saw, 4 years ago in MX2, where we thought pretty much, he's going to be the next big thing, certainly for Italy. Between him and Forato, those were the big hopes for Italy before Andrea Adamo obviously managed to sort of seize some of the limelight. And it's just looking a bit rough for both now, isn't it? But you've got to give Forato some slack, 100%, because that was such a serious smash that he had at the beginning of the year, and it has been a turbulent 2024. But it's hard to make a definitive verdict.
Answer me this. I had this conversation with someone. Guadagnini has been on factory KTM in some form for 4 years now. 1GP's had the red plate. By all accounts, he won't be on Austrian machinery next year. But those 4 years, have they been successful overall? Or, as I said, 1GP's had red plates. There have been flashes. But if you have to bottle it all up, I would say maybe it's not... It arguably peaked in his 3rd race, and it's kind of just been meh ever since.
Yeah. Friend of the podcast, friend of ours, Rasmus Jorgensen, really believes in him. He's been sort of giving him a lot of pointers, a lot of help, in their first season together, working in sort of white and blue. But yeah, I think you're right, Lewis. I think, that first season, it's hard to get by. It was a case of perhaps too much too soon. And unusually for like the Cairoli setup between Claudio and Davide was one project, one rider that didn't quite work. The reasons for that, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Mattia didn't want to listen. Maybe there was some issue with his whole general approach to racing. But the fact that he was picking up injuries and not making any forward progress. And then, of course, there was that mid-season switch to riding in MXGP. You have to question perhaps the wisdom of that. So it's a tough deal for the Italian, because he was, like we say, the Cairoli successor, if you like, and it hasn't worked out.
I almost wonder if it was too much too soon and mentally he wasn't quite ready to handle that. Because I don't know how much we expected from Mattia before he turned pro, but very quickly he was winning GPs, had the red plate, then his 2nd year entered as a title contender, and I just wonder if he maybe wasn't quite ready for that level of pressure and scrutiny, because he's a fun-loving guy, relaxed. I just wonder if that situation kind of made him freak out a bit, and we've never quite recovered, almost.
Yeah, it feels like a long blip, though. I mean, I know when he was signed by sort of the factory KTM team, KTM were a little bit, not wary, but I think they were... They perhaps, from the Austrian point of view, wouldn't have made the move, but it was sort of the Ducati side with Davide and Claudio thought, this rider has something and he's got some real potential. And they made the signature. He went into the factory team, and that first season, they seemed to be right. Everything was going swimmingly, but... maybe it's just something we can ask around, or I can ask around a bit in Lommel, and to say, what's the story there? What really is the cause of like Guadagnini failing to sort of, push on and win more races and be more of a championship contender? Because he should have been the next sort of MX2 world champion before Adamo got it. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, if you want me to compare Adamo to Mattia his first year in MX2, I would argue that Mattia was more prominent, more of a force, more... Yeah. He was great.
Oh, sure.
And by all accounts, he is most likely to be Ducati's 2nd rider, but then now people are telling me they don't know if that contract is done. I wonder if Forato's trying to put his foot in there. I don't know. So... But I would, if I was a betting man, I would bet on Mattia to be Ducati's 2nd guy. Honestly, if he doesn't do that, who knows? Kind of the only option. But as you said, sorry.
One other thing, sorry, Lewis, to cut you off. The rumor that Triumph are not ready with their 450 has been floating around for a while now. There's been no official word from 100%. The factory, has there?
No official word, but it's 100%. Yeah.
So therefore, that does wreck the racing plan somewhat, right? I mean, they're not going to bring a bike early. You'd understand if they want to race a 450 like Ducati and maybe not have it ready for production. But if they're not even going to race it, then you'd say, well, that was sort of Roman Febvre's career direction, taking a left turn.
Yeah, but is it not? I think it may have worked out better for Febvre. Do another year on Cairoli when you can still potentially battle for a title, and now Triumph will be ready for you when it's more of your transition out of the limelight phase, so you can kind of cash in, enjoy a new project in the transition period of your life. It kind of maintains Roman's competitiveness, in my opinion, for an extra year. But
so that's the next PR confirmation we should wait for, that Febvre's going to renew for Kawasaki for another year, because he can't really go anywhere else, can he? Unless he suddenly signs for Fantic and becomes their next astronaut.
Oh, stop, Adam. I'm going to laugh too much. This is honestly all I've thought about since that discussion is the moon landing and how many jokes we can make. And also for Kawasaki,
apparently it was fake.
Well, don't tell Fantic that. They'll be the marketing team will be in disarray. They'll be like, what do you mean? We've just celebrated it. Honestly, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, hey, Apple, I'd like to take you to motocross. And then you walk into the paddock and like, hey, have you seen our moon landing bikes? Like, sorry, Apple, let's go. This isn't.
Well, maybe they get NASA as a sponsor.
Well, maybe that's the play. I don't know. The 55th, we're not even like the 50th. I could kind of maybe, I would be less critical of. I just wish now it was a 54th, because that would be amazing. Like, we're celebrating the 54 and 6-month anniversary.
Lewis, listen, I have a question for you to pull things back on track.
Okay.
Was this Kaida Wolf Grand Prix victory the most surprising of the season?
Okay, before you do that, I do have one more thing to say on the previous topic. Kawasaki's second rider for next year, I can't say too much about who they're going after because I'm too close to it. They're going...
Ben Watson.
No. Well, way to bring me down, Adam. You had me from I was on the moon, and now I've just been brought back to reality. They are looking further afield than MXGP and America. So make of that what you will.
Further afield than MXGP and America?
They're looking to the moon, Adam. They're looking to the moon.
So we're going to be looking at the Indonesian National Championship or something.
We're all going to the moon as a series. As a series, we came together, said Fantic have done it right. We're all off. Off we go. 3, 2, 1, take off. I like Louis Foster's. I'm sure this wasn't his decision, and if it was, I'm sorry, Louis. But this is funny. Yes, so I know that Nastan was somewhat concerned about Loket because hardpack is Kaida Wolf's weakness. I think Lucas Coenen went 8-8 last year. So if there was one event to circle on the calendar as a time where this momentum could potentially grind to a halt, it was Loket. I honestly cannot believe that Kaida Wolf won, and this is certainly maybe more special than even his first GP win. I cannot believe he won.
And both of their riders won the motos. I mean, Lucas won the first one.
Honestly, Nastan are inevitable at this point. This is an incredible season for a team. This is almost Red Bull KTM with Prado and Jonas.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big result for Kai. I mean, the sand as well. I mean, Lucas, of course, is good in the sand, but coming up to Lommel and then his home GP after, I think, I'm not sure if I said this before, but when it comes to Arnhem and Kaida Wolf's home Grand Prix, seeing how he mentally tackles that race as what he should still be the championship leader by then, how he goes through that weekend, I think will speak a lot for the transformation that he's made in the last 18 months. And, you know, whether he's really going to go on and do this thing. I mean, if he crumbles, you're going to say, oh, he's not quite there yet. But if he sort of has the same sort of steeliness that he showed in Loket by going sort of 3-1 and taking the overall, then, you know, he's firmly on course.
Yeah, I'm the same. Big question mark was how to handle the low of walking into Loket and thinking to yourself, this is going to be difficult. Now I want to see how he handles the high of walking into Lommel and, more importantly, Arnhem, and thinking to himself, oh, this will be easy. I'm the guy. This is going to be great. What a great weekend. Oh, my friends are here. My family's here. You know, that is the other end of the spectrum, but can equally trip you up. I'll tell you this. More and more, I have people tell me, Lucas has got this. This is going to be Lucas's title. This is really going in his direction. And I kind of humour these people.
That's not Myrtle whisper in your ear, is it?
Multiple people. I humour these people. But I don't see it. Like, Kai is kind of just, every time Lucas kind of steps up and makes some sort of attempt or signals notice, Kai just responds and shuts it down. Loket was that again, because after the first moto, I was like, okay, this could be the start. And again, no, Kai shuts it down. This is Kai's title. But set your...
But they are close, though. I mean, you know, in terms of moto wins, Grand Prix wins, podiums, there's like 1 or 2 digits between them.
But exactly, they are close. And if they were within 10 points, this would be wide open. But they are close, and Kai has a 50-point lead. So... So Lucas needs to do more than be close. But honestly, I think that this weekend could be the race of the year. I think that Kai and Lucas are going to run away from the field, be 40 seconds ahead, and in a battle to the death for the win. I honestly could see this being a titanic duel, and perhaps where emotions spill over a little bit. I don't know, but I honestly have this weekend circled as the one that's going to be just an incredible all-out duel between the pair.
I would also flag Rick Elzinga. I wouldn't rule him out from, you know, leading a couple of laps or at least making some sort of impact. Well, maybe. And also Liam Everts. I don't think, you know, he's going to be too shoddy or slow as well at Lommel.
Okay, Liam Everts I can agree with. You should have led with that. You were on the moon with the first one.
Okay.
That's just going to be our reference point for everything. You're on the moon, you're off the moon, you're...
defying gravity.
Yeah, that's better. I think this is Kai's championship to lose at this point. Lagenfelder was once again there, which is great.
2-2.
But some of us have much higher expectations than this, so... I don't know if you celebrate this. I guess he's staying at Cairoli next year. I would really like to see him move to Nistan, but that doesn't seem to be on the cards. So,
well, it depends how KTM finally organise their racing structure for 2025. That's still up in the air. You know, as far as we know, or I guess press releases will be coming out soon, or some sort of confirmation. You'd think maybe around Lommel time, but. For me, Lewis, I think what we were talking earlier about how Loket can really bite riders. I mean, that was the case, I think, certainly with the reigning world champion, who's pretty much... I mean, you argued a long time ago that Adamo was out of the picture when it came to defending his crown. But then, of course, having a DNF and a DNS this weekend, partly due to a big crash he had in warm-up, which I think cut his torso, his lower abdomen. And then when he crashed, while riding pretty well and pretty fast in the first moto, it had to be said, he reopened the wound. He said that he had to go to hospital because his blood pressure was pretty low. And then they sort of reapplied the stitches again. And I don't know what that means for Lommel, because being back-to-back, that sort of injury could be a bit sketchy. I mean, all he needs to do is crash and reopen it again. So I don't know if he's going to be in for Belgium or not. But it was a shame, you know, because this is very much an Adamo-style track, again, where he has that sort of composed, very collected riding style and just feels his way around the circuit. So bit of a shame.
Yeah, when I first saw the news about him going to hospital, I automatically ruled him out of Lommel. He's not a sand guy anyway. What is there to gain? I would be very surprised if he turns up at Lommel. It sounds as though he could have used EVS protection. EVS Sports, the original protective gear company, has been protecting champions and riders for almost 40 years and does not plan to stop anytime soon. What started out as one knee brace has evolved into a full line of protective gear to help keep riders safe while they do what they love. Check out evs-sports.com to see the same protective gear that pros RJ Hampshire, Kyle Chisholm, Axel Hodges, and Travis Pastrana all wear every day. Thank you to EVS Sports. So, hold on, I just realised I was in the middle of researching this. So, in 2008, Steve Ramon won one GP in defence of his MX1 world title. If Adamo doesn't win a GP, does he eclipse Ramon and become the one we reference in years to come? Because you know, as well as I do, in the paddock, there is a lot of, it's a Ramon title. Oh, he could win this title like Ramon. You know, that is very much just a general reference. So will we now start saying an Adamo title? He can do that like Adamo.
Possibly, but then I think there's a differentiation anyway between MX2 and MXGP.
True.
I think, you know, just because it's just generally a more frenetic, chaotic class, isn't it? But, you know, if it was a situation in the Premier class that we saw, then, yeah, there could be some sort of credence to that. But, you know, I think the way that Ramon won the title in 2007, fair play to him, because he was there picking up points when other riders weren't. You know, and David Philippart was such a force of nature on that first year with the factory Yamaha. Yeah, you would have thought he would have got more than one Grand Prix win. And, you know, it's fitting that you mentioned that name, actually, Lewis, because, you know, his career ended at the Belgian Grand Prix, I want to say 2011, perhaps. So that's, you know, one of the less desirable memories associated with Lommel. But, yeah, you have to feel for Adamo. I mean, he's won motos. Has he won 2 to 3 motos? So it hasn't been like one of those disastrous years where he hasn't even looked like being fast enough to take checkered flags. But it just hasn't worked out.
He's won 2 motos. 2 motos. Speaking of Ramon, I've just realised he works with Jago Geertz, and the long-standing idea was that Geertz would be back this weekend. I haven't seen confirmation, but I would expect him back this weekend. That's another rider that could potentially steal points from one of the title contenders, so add him to the pool of fun. I just want to quickly tell you about All Balls Racing. The All Balls Racing Group is a combination of the finest aftermarket power sports brands from across the US and Europe, combining OEM-level engineering and design capabilities with a world-class supply chain makes us, or them, I'm not involved, the largest global supplier of critical aftermarket hard parts for the power sports industry. You can trust the All Balls Racing Group to provide the exact fitment and best quality in the industry at a price that fits your budget. All Balls Racing have everything to keep you running. I did have... let me ask you this, actually, quickly. Does Lackenfelder win a GP this year? Or is the guy... Okay. That's a hit to my reputation.
Yeah, Sasha Coenen might get another one if he manages to stay on 2 wheels with those starts. You know, I sort of suggested the ridiculous idea of some sort of weight combined.
Yeah, someone was very angry with you.
Last podcast. Yeah, but it's just a talking point. That's what fucking podcasts are for, isn't it? Right?
People take stuff really seriously, like really seriously.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. I've fell into that trap quite a few times recently. I did a sewer-esque interview with Sexton at the weekend where it wasn't really an interview. It was just kind of ended up being nonsense chat. And someone said, you can tell that Chase absolutely hates this guy. I was just like, okay, cool. Thanks. That's great.
Yeah, because he's going to give you the time of day if he hated you.
And he's also just going to talk, like play into the... Because it was because... Again, I call it similar to a Ramon title. I call it a sewer interview, where it was just "you're an idiot," "no, you're an idiot," and like that sort of. And yeah, people said you can tell, so that's great. But
I was saying, if Coenen, you know, with his propensity for whole shots, if he stays on 2 wheels, I can see him snatching another Grand Prix somewhere. And then let's see how Lucas and Kai, and let's not forget they're both sort of young guys, handle sort of the championship running. And when things get, you know, really high stakes, that's when the slight slips or the errors could make a big difference. And, you know, I'm curious to see how they will handle it, how Rasmus is going to handle it. It's all going to be very tense.
Fascinating. The whole series landscape is fascinating. Should we talk about the rumor going around at Loket about the fascinating possible occurrence that comes up at some point, or do we stay away?
You mean Tony Cairoli racing the Ducati?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the latest rumor that it's going to happen, right? I don't know if it's going to be 1 or 2 appearances, and also considering the fact I don't think he even won on his Italian Championship outing. Can we put much stock in it? I mean, is it a case of like maybe he takes the whole shot, leads half a lap, looks fantastic on this blood red motorcycle, and that's it?
Yeah, I would bet a lot of money that Cairoli races a GP this year and races 2 next year or so as well. I think we see more Cairoli in our lives coming up. Yeah, my fear is what happens if he just rides around in 17th? Like, are we cool with that? Do we just say good to have him out there? Because to be honest, I don't want to see that. Like, I would rather see a Cairoli 9th. As you said, runs top 5 for a couple of laps, finishes 9th. That's great. That's in the realm of Tony Cairoli. 17th is painful.
To be honest, though, there's not really much difference, is there? I mean, if you're top 5, that's fine. But whether you're 8th, 9th, 11th, 12th, 15th, I mean, I think it would be cool just to see the Ducati. I think people may even be watching the bike more than him because, you know, he's been there and done it. So it's certainly for the first race, if it's just 1 or 2, then, you know, watching the sort of the Desmo 450 MX, I mean, I don't think we can judge it either. I mean, if you put somebody like Romo Febvre or Jeremy Sewer or Mattia Guadagnini on the bike, then you could probably judge it a little bit more. But this is just like a preview. It's like a look and see. Imagine he does rip a whole shot.
You know, in his career, Cairoli was quite outspoken about himself, the bike. Wasn't one to really toe the company line. Fair?
I don't know.
I feel like he
did sometimes.
I feel like he was happy enough to say like, yeah, my suspension wasn't working today. We need to get that better. Or am I off base?
I think you're a bit off base there.
Okay.
I think when it came to the media work, he was quite discreet.
Okay. I just feel like
maybe towards the end, you know, he was a bit more blasé about stuff.
Yeah, I guess I only really caught the end of his career, so maybe I'm looking at a very specific portion, whereas you have a broader picture.
Also, I think when it comes to doing any press stuff for riding the Ducati, it's going to be a very strong message of we're here just to take some references, gather some information. You know, there are parallels to what, say, like Danny Pedrosa is doing in MotoGP, where he makes like wildcard appearances just to get sort of references and some touching points for how competitive the class is now. I mean, he retired in 2018, still finishing top 5, top 6 when he does make an appearance. Of course, he's not on like a brand new motorcycle like Tony would be in MXGP, but, you know, it's still pretty much the same sentiment of putting the motorcycle into the picture and seeing what needs to be done.
Did this arise because Ducati's marketing department ran in on Monday morning and said, Fantic, in their first year, have just celebrated the moon landing. We have to respond. What do we have? What can we possibly do? And they're like, we have to bring Cairoli back. That's the only possible response to this. I'd imagine that's how it went.
Yeah, what else can they commemorate?
They can't. The only possible thing you can do is bring the 9-time world champion off the shelf. And I'm not sure that's enough. It must be over
100 years now since the first submarine launched. So I don't know.
To be honest, the only thing I can think of in response is someone comes out with like Hitler graphics. Like, hey, we're here. Like, hey, hey, we're here to celebrate. Like,
Lewis?
No.
You've been surrounded by too much American politics, I think.
I just think that would be. You know what? I'm gonna use my contacts and see if I can make that happen, because that would also bring me joy. Right. Slightly longer than expected, but we're good.
Well, listen, prediction for Lommel then. Who wins? Let's finish on that. I'm gonna say Jorge Prado.
Okay. Wow.
Just to be different.
My head immediately says 1-1-1 for Herlings, but I do believe that Prado will steal one win from him, most likely qualifying, based on history. I think Herlings wins the GP, but it's 1-2-1 in some order. Gajser, I believe, misses the podium, finishes 4th. I think Vlanderen will be really good.
Ooh, spicy.
Mm-hmm. Do we care about MX2 or?
Kai. Has to be Kai.
Yeah, I think Kai as well. And the women's? No, I'm joking. I don't even know if they're racing. Right.
Oh, Lottie Van Droon, why not? Even if they are racing. She's having a good season.
Lottie Van Droon is doing MX2.
Oh, she's wildcarding?
Yes. Do we have anything to say? I have nothing. I was hoping you were going to... No? Okay, good for her.
No. Well, we were talking about her not too long ago on that podcast because she's part of this management kind of agency with that idiot Lando Norris and his F1 operation. I mean, have you seen like his recent post-race behavior? It's, I mean, that's what I was saying. It's F1 is seizing on any little drop of controversy or bad feeling or whatever between drivers. It's, I find it quite desperate.
I would love if we could have that cool-down room in MXGP, but more importantly, in MXGP 2012, because it would have been like a cage match where Herlings and...
They have it. They have that sort of strange little tarpaulin tent thing behind the podium where they go and get washed and everyone's in there. I remember Clement Dessau being livid with Gautier Paulin one year, just like gesturing and shouting all sorts of obscenities at him across the tent. It was loud, but not loud enough so Gautier could hear.
Oh.
But it was, you know, they pack him into this tiny little space and it's, it can be quite, heated.
Well, let's get a drone in there. You love drones. Let's fly a drone in there.
Well, put a GoPro, hang a GoPro in the corner.
Honestly, we just need to do more. So, final thought from me. You are going to Lommel. Congrats.
Yes.
Are you excited?
As long as it doesn't piss or rain and I get wet.
Yeah, I guess someone just texted me and said Saturday is meant to be really wet. I haven't looked. But
oh, no. Right.
Which
adds
to the fascination.
There's going to be some Alpine Stars presentation as well. There's something going on Saturday that would be quite unique. Yeah. Maybe we can talk about that on next week's podcast.
Well, so we got an email about that yesterday. It didn't say it was under embargo. I found it weird that they just said, like, hey, they're going to launch this. And it was like, we could talk about that now because it was on email. And I feel like that kind of ruins their presentation.
Well, it's motocross's first airbag. So it can't be something that's too big of a secret. I mean, they've been working on it for almost 10 years. Obviously very complicated to get the algorithm sorted for motocross. But it seems like, you know, the Italian Americans are ready to present it, and it's going to be Lommel on Saturday. I think you should look at your plane ticket, Lewis, because it might be quite newsworthy.
Honestly, I just want to. I just feel like I want to come and talk to people about the moon landing. I should have done this at the start. I wish I'd done this when I first mentioned it. I should have texted Strybos for a reaction, because you can imagine it would have been very... There probably would have been a rolling eyes emoji, and then I could have shared that and we all would have laughed, but now we'll never know.
He could have given some great insight into, you know, the creation of the livery.
I'm going to text him. Hold on. I'll text him right now. Maybe he replies before we wrap this up in 2 minutes. Did you decide to celebrate the moon landing? Guess.
Well, while you're waiting for that, we should also mention Kevin's Lommel milestone when he won in 2004. No, not 14. When did he take Suzuki's last Grand Prix victory?
16.
2017. 16, 17. Okay, I mean, he went... So it was something bizarre, wasn't it? Like 4-4 or something on the day and took the overall win?
3-3.
At a time when, you know... 3-3, okay. When Suzuki used to do that strange beach setting, used to do their own beach compound in the paddock. You know, those were the days, eh? Real factory team, real... I mean, now we have big goldfish bowls and sort of, you know, HRC are pretty much the kings when it comes to race infrastructure. But then you had the Suzuki trucks parked in a world of a big mound of sand.
Yeah, the Suzuki area was unbelievable. That was like... Have we gone backwards? I feel like we're talking about all this cool stuff. Am I old now where I'm one of those people, or have we gone backwards? Where is...
You are getting older.
I know,
just to break that to you.
We've talked about 2012, we've talked about 2016, like what... I feel like what has happened recently? Someone needs to step up. Importantly,
What about?
I said to Kevin, did you decide to celebrate the moon landing? You'd make a stupid decision like that. He put many laughing faces, not my fault, and then told me whose fault it was. And I'm not going to reveal that. Right. So you are going to Lommel. A lot to come from there. So next week will essentially be me interviewing you, but we will try and get...
Wait.
Okay.
I want your Lommel memory before you go. I mentioned Strybos. I also have to mention Kender Dyker for some inexplicable reason taking off all of his clothes while on the podium. Rebel KTM going 1, 2, 3 with all 3 of their riders. I think Glenn Koldenoff was the 3rd rider. That was something pretty historic. Sean Simpson winning as a privateer 2014 or 13, I want to say. Can't remember the year. Sorry, Sean. What else? Max Sansti as well.
Yep. Just wait. You'll
Is that
get
stealing your one?
No, you'll get there eventually.
And Ben Watson.
Took you long enough. Yep. Funnily enough, though, Ben was the second thing that came to mind, because the first one is I remember in 2018. I do this sometimes. I randomly became very present in the moment, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch Herlings for a lap and see if is he actually that amazing? Because, you get distracted and you miss stuff. So I was like, I'm just going to watch him and see if it really is amazing. And it's the first thing that comes to mind, because I was like, oh, okay, he is in fact quite good in the sand.
He is otherworldly.
That's the type of journalist I am. I can now confirm 13 years into his career that he is in fact quite a good sand rider. Right, are we done?
We're done.
Honestly, this may be my favourite one of the year.
Really?
Yeah, good chat, good laughs. This has been good. I mean, I should clarify. I feel like more and more this is becoming or moving away from being a race review and more of a general landscape podcast. I like that. Let us know what you people think, because I quite enjoy the fact that we're just kind of discussing every week rather than going through the results or whatever.
I'm sorry for the background noise of lots of children jumping in the swimming pool just outside the window, because I'm still sort of on semi-vacation. But yeah, Lewis, you're right. Just be a little bit careful on that re-entry, okay? Because the heat shield only lasts up to a certain temperature, and atmosphere can be a bit bumpy.
Well, I would like you to open your window and go, kids, it's the 55th anniversary of the moon landing. And then they all go, yay! Right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to Polosport, EVS Sports, and All Balls Racing for their support. Thank you to Kevin Strybos for returning to my text about the moon landing. Great times. We'll be back next week to discuss the MXGP of Flanders. I won't be there, most likely, but Adam Wheeler from the Paddock Pass podcast will. So we will be back in 7 days' time to discuss all of that right here on the MXGP Podcast Show. See you then.